and record here. And welcome everybody. It's so nice to see you. I really missed you. I had so much I wanted to share with you as I was going on the trip and just seeing everything. So hello to everybody. Hello, Janice. Hello, Tova. Hello, Rebecca. Hello, Sharon. Hello, Lois. It's nice to see all you. Hello, Janice. It's great to see everybody. So why don't we start with our blessing? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. We are now in what are called the 7 weeks of consolation, and they're the 7 weeks of Nechama. And the word Nechama means consolation. That's how it's always translated. And these are the 7 weeks that are taking us from our very low point of Tisha B'Av all the way to the beginning of Rosh Hashanah. They are considered like in weeks form, like the 7 days of Shiva, except we're coming out of it and it's featured with joy. It's joy, it's preparation for the new year. We're at the end of the year, getting ready for the new year, but still focusing on the old year. But these are weeks of consolation. The word in Hebrew, however, for consolation is nechama. And that word really means to reconsider or to have a change of heart, a change of mindset. I've rethought something. And we're supposed to do a lot of rethinking during these 7 weeks after coming off of how we got ourselves to Tisha B'Av and the destruction that has brought and continues to bring to the Jewish people and to the entire world. How do we rethink what it is we're supposed to be doing? How do we get ourselves back on track? So the weeks of consolation are also times of joy. That's why all the weddings start up again, all the celebrations start up again. So in that way, it's not at all like Shiva, because obviously during Shiva you don't have weddings and things like that. So we are in this kind of a mixed time of coming off of the down, concluding the end of the year, and starting the beginning, getting ready to start the beginning of this next coming year with Rosh Hashanah. So let's talk about where we're at and the Parsha that we have. This week's Parsha is the Parsha of Ekev. And the Parsha of Ekev, see just here, let me get the beginning of it here. Parsha of Ekev is on page 981 if you're in the Chumash, or chapter 7, verse 12 of the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy. Also, just to set the stage here, since a lot of time has passed since we've been together, we are in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, which is also called Mishnah Torah. It means the repetition of the Torah. It is Moshe's farewell addressed to the Jewish people in the final month of his life. The book of Devarim opens up with Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Rosh Chodesh of Shvat is when we have Tu B'Shvat, and Moshe passes away on the 7th of Adar, which is like 5 weeks later. So the entire book of Devarim is really the final month of Moshe's life, and the final year and the final month the Jewish people are in the desert, getting ready to cross across from our apartment into the land of Israel at Jericho. So that's where they are. So a lot of endings and new beginnings are what is featured in the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, and Parshat Ekev specifically. So Parshat Ekev opens up, V'haya Ekev tishme'un et hamishpatim ha'ela ushmartem v'asitem otam. This shall be the reward when you hearken to these ordinances and you observe and perform them. The word for reward that is used here is Ekev. Now, when we talk about the concept of reward and punishment in Judaism, we don't use the word Ekev. We use the word schar. Schar is a reward. Onesh is a punishment. We don't use the word Ekev. So it's interesting to note that that's the word that is used. We're going to go on a word search and trace the use of this word, of where it appears in Torah and how we can understand what the word means, and then to understand what's in it for us? What are we supposed to understand? So the word ekev being used here as reward. So let's take a look and see, where does the word ekev first appear? If anybody knows, you can unmute and let me know. It's kind of an interesting place. The first place it appears, the word ekev. Does anybody have any idea? Okay, so if you want to turn to page 105, which is going all the way back to Bereshit, all the way back to the story of Abraham, page 105, we're going to see the word ekev, also used in the context of
Which chapter?
I'm sorry, chapter 22, verse 18. This is following the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, the near sacrifice of Isaac. And Abraham is rewarded for having been willing to go through with the Akedah. And the word is used here. So if you go to we'll start with verse 15 on page 105, or chapter 22, verse 15. The angel of Hashem called to Abraham a second time from heaven, and he said, by myself I swear the word of Hashem, that because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only one, that I shall surely bless you and greatly increase your offering, it should be offspring, I'm sorry. Offspring, I've just noticed that for the first time. Your offspring like the stars of the heavens and like the sand on the seashore. And your offspring shall inherit the gate of its enemy. And then verse 18, and all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your offspring. And then the word is because you have listened to my voice. In this case, if you go to the Hebrew in Pasuk Yud Chet, it's towards the end of it. It's next to the letter Yud Tet in the margin of the Hebrew that's symbolizing the verse. It says, Ekev asher shamata bikoli. And it's translated as because you listened to my voice. Because you listened to my voice. So now the word Ekev means two things. It means this is your reward, and it also means because. Okay, so we're going to kind of build this up and see what emerges here for us. So here with Abraham, and let's think about this a little bit, that Abraham, we're told and we're taught, went through 10 tests. He had 10 tests that he had to accomplish, and that he passed all of them. The 10th test, we're told, is the Akedah. The Akedah, which we will read on Rosh Hashanah, but the Akedah, the merit that Abraham got for the binding of Isaac, is in an account. It's like a trust fund for the Jewish people, that we draw on that specific, not so much the other. We don't have a Lech Lecha account. We don't have any of the other accounts. We have an Akedah account that we draw from. That's one of the reasons why we have a shofar on Rosh Hashanah, is because instead of sacrificing Isaac, there was a ram caught in the thicket, and Abraham took that and he shepherded that, and that became the offering, and that horn is a symbol of the would-be Akedah. So the Akedah basically was the command from God to sacrifice his son Isaac made no sense on any level that we can understand. It was not logical. At the most basic, God is against child sacrifice, and Abraham had taught against child sacrifice his whole life. So to be told to sacrifice your child goes against what he had been told to do all of this time. Also, he was promised, just in the most practical way, he had been promised that Isaac was going to be his inheritor, and that he was going to be the source of all of these multiple offsprings. Well, you don't have that since Isaac wasn't even married yet. You're not getting that if Isaac is sacrificed. So it made no sense. And it didn't make sense also because it was like, for what? For what purpose? So the fact that Abraham had to do something that was not logical, but purely because God commanded it. Now, we're not talking about blind faith. I mean, if God is talking to you, that's a pretty reliable thing. Though if God is talking to any one of us, you may want to consult a professional for some help, because God doesn't speak to us in the same way as he spoke to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all of those other people. But God told him to do this. He had to go outside of his intellect. And it says Abraham was a master intellect. He was a master intellect. That's how he discovered God, was through a process of rational reasoning and clear deductive thinking. So then to be given a command that goes against all of that, and is because God said so, this is called akev, because you listen to something, you listen to my voice, not the logic. You listened to my voice and you did what I asked you to do. So now we know that something about akev has something to do about listening to God when it's not logical. If we go back for a moment, now you can go back to where we were in our Parsha of akev, and we're going to see that the same word is going to repeat. So if you go back to page 980, we're going to be kind of skipping around a little bit here. If we go back, and now these words are going to sound a little different to us, because now we have the Avraham piece. And it says, V'haya ekev tishma'un et hamishpatim. It says, this shall be the reward when you lishmoa, when you hearken and you pay attention, when you listen. It's the same word. Here they translate it as hearken. There was you listen to my voice. When you pay attention to the mishpatim, to the laws, and you guard them and you do them and you guard what God has given us in the covenant. This has to do something with what we do with mitzvot that don't make sense to us logically is one category, or mitzvot that don't seem that important, like why would I really bother? Is that really something that God is so concerned about? I'm not sure. It says that those categories of mitzvot are involved with the concept of ekev. It's different than schar. It's different than the reward. Other kinds of reward are considered more logical. This is considered, I don't exactly get it. So now we want to know, why is the word ekev? So we have a third place where we see the word ekev. And this place will be more familiar to you because it's embedded in the name of one of our patriarchs. And that is Yaakov. Yaakov. Why is Yaakov called Yaakov? So for that, we want to go to page 127 in the Chumash, and I'll give you the chapter and verse. Hold on one second. Page 127. Oh, and I just want to say that this wonderful insights came from Rabbi Mordechai Satorsky. So I'm very grateful to him and putting this together. This is about the birth of Jacob and Esau, and we are in chapter 25, verse 26. Chapter 25, verse 26 of Genesis. As we remember, Rebecca is pregnant with twins. She is pregnant with who will become Yaakov and Esau, Jacob and Esau. Esau is born first. And it says, this is in verse 26. I'm sorry, we'll do the first one, verse 25. The first one emerged red, entirely like a hairy mantle. So they named him Esau or Esau. After that, his brother emerged with his hand grasping onto the heel of Esau. So he called his name Yaakov. Isaac was 6 years old when she bore them. Now you don't see it as much obviously in the English. So let's go to the Hebrew where it says in verse 26, and after that, Yatsa Achiv, came out his brother, V'yado Ochezet Ba'akev, was holding on to the heel of Esav, V'yikra Shemo Yaakov. So they called him heel. Now, we know that the names of everybody, even us average folks, says that parents have Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, when they name their children, and that their name has to do with their mission, their challenges, their gifts, their opportunities. It's a whole destiny thing is involved in the name. So here they're calling Yaakov based on the word ekev. The fact that he was holding on to the heel of Esav becomes the basis of his name, which is kind of strange. I mean, we're just used to it because we know it's Yaakov, but would you really seriously call your child heel? I mean, that is a kind of a funny thing because that's what the word actually means. The word means heel, but it's used also for the word for reward. It's used for the idea of reward for things that people find difficult to do because they don't make sense. It's used to talk about a reward for mitzvot that people tend to think are not really anything. Basically, what's in common with those things of the mitzvot are things that with my mind and my heart, I'm not there. It's like people would say, kind of in the vernacular, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. That doesn't make sense. You're not talking to me about lighting Shabbos candles. And yes, it's beautiful and spiritual and bring on the light of creation. Not talking to me about tzedakah. That makes sense. Help the poor. None of these things are about the idea of Akev, nor about Yaakov, nor about Avraham. So it's like this is the construct that we have. So let's see if we can understand that. So thinking about our bodies, literally looking at our body, which is considered to be a microcosm of all of the 248 positive mitzvot and the 365 negative mitzvot. Our body is considered a physical construct of that. I don't have the list, though there is a list. I don't have it. I did find it, but I couldn't understand the Hebrew. I couldn't even read the Hebrew letters at all of them. But when we think about things, it's like there's nothing that is farther on the human body from the head than the heel. It doesn't get any farther than that. It's like that is something that's so far away from my head. It has nothing to do with logic or thinking or my heart or anything like that. It's very far away. It's at the end. So things that have to do with the end of something that's far away from the mind, but it also has to do with the idea of an end, which fits in with why it would have the definition of being a reward. The reward is the consequence. The result at the end, after you have done something, at the very end is the akev. That's when the reward comes, is afterwards. So we have the idea of something being at the end, but also something that's away from the mind and from the heart that are important mitzvot that we're supposed to pay attention to. Questions about any of these, just like these thoughts, we're just kind of putting the dots out there so that we can then connect all of them, So we have ekev, meaning heel. We have ekev, meaning because of Avraham. You did this, you followed God's word, even though it didn't make sense to you. And now we have this in Parshas Ekev, that you will get this reward when you listen. All of these, when you listen to God's voice and you're not trying to, not that we don't try to figure it out or come up with reasons, but at the end of the day, why are we doing it? We're doing it because God commanded us. That's what we're left with. It's kind of like, that's the end. It's beyond my head. It's beyond my heart. I don't get it. And that was what Avraham did. And that is what gives us tremendous merit. Okay, any questions just like about those ideas there? Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like these hoax that,
Yes.
Right.
The CHOK, not the HOAX. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. It's like about the chukim, like the things that don't make sense to us. And those things are like, we don't get them. And then there are also mitzvot that are not, they're not a hope, but it's like, seriously, that's so important. Like people say, God cares what I eat. God cares, what I wear. God cares what I do. God cares. Like, I think God has bigger things to worry about. It's like, well, guess what? God is concerned about all those things because they all matter. And so the Ekev things it says that they're the things that people trample with their heels, kind of like they grind under their heels, that they either disregard them, walk over them, ignore them. They don't mean anything to me. It's like, I'm done with it. All of those things are Ekev kinds of things. So it says those are the ones that we're supposed to pay extra attention to because the reward is incredible. Just like Abraham is told, for that test, that is the biggest reward, is because it didn't make sense to you. And so for us as well, and this is hard because Judaism prides itself on its intellectuality. We are an intellectual, rational, thoughtful, analytical. In fact, somebody one time said to me, I think that the rabbis must have all been on the autistic spectrum, and the reason they're like just like focused in on all of these pratim, all of these details, and that's why Judaism has developed all of these details in the mitzvah observance. Like, There may be people, who knows, God creates many people with many different challenges and opportunities and gifts, and I don't know that, but that's not the concept. Concept is the world is a detailed world that requires our analysis. So to kind of literally stand that on its head and say, but in the end, if the only things we can follow are the things that make sense to us, in the end, then we are worshiping ourselves. Is because I figured it out, I understand it, it makes sense to me, then who am I worshiping? I'm actually worshiping me and my mind. So while there is a huge place for it, and we're called the people of the book, the people of the word, the Talmud is only nothing but discussion and argument and proofs and everything else. Bring a proof, bring a quote, bring a source. And then to say, but Ekev, there are those things that are not in that category that we just do. When we get to that, it says that is when we have the real test of who we are. Second part, Ekev being the part, the heel, is also related to time. The human body is also not only a metaphor or an expression of all of the mitzvot, it's also considered a metaphor for human history. Starting off with the head, moving to the heart, and working its way down. And I don't have an understanding of all how that lays out. But where we are in history now, this I do know, and that our sages talk about it, we are now in the Ekev of time. We are called, in fact, before Mashiach comes, is called Ikvaseh de Mashiach, which is Aramaic for the heel, the Ekev of Mashiach. And it's called the footsteps of Mashiach. It's the end times. And the end times have a certain quality to them. One is, it's at the end. And at the end, it's like at the end of the marathon, it's like everybody's exhausted. Everyone is tired. Everyone is worn out. This is the Jewish people. You don't have to read much Jewish history to feel like worn out from everything that the Jewish people has been through collectively. Just pick any year, any day, any time, any place. We've been through so much. And now we're in the end time and we're tired. The heels also, depending on how often you get a pedicure, heels are known for being less sensitive, the least sensitive part of the body, which is why you can walk around, except me, if I get one little pebble in my shoe, I can't walk. But our heels tend to be calloused, and that's how we are. Is we've been through history and we're callous. I don't mean that we're callous people, but we've lost some sensitivity. We don't feel things. I talked to somebody just yesterday who said, we were talking about the Birkat Hamazon, which is commanded in this week's Parsha also of Ekev. And she says, I just don't feel it. I say the words, but I don't really feel it. It's like, that's how a lot of people feel. And it actually doesn't have to do with how religious or observant you are. A lot of people finding really hard to connect. We're not feeling it. Now, that's because we are in exile. We are so away from a total context and framework of Jewish life. It's hard to feel. We have to do so much to create an environment where we can feel our connection, which is why when we do feel it, we get so excited. This is why Jews play Jewish geography. They have the term bageling, which means when somebody who doesn't look Jewish says something to somebody who is obviously Jewish to let them know that they're Jewish too. How about you're in the produce department and you're at the potatoes and you say, you hear somebody say, my grandmother used to make a great potato kugel. It's like, this person is telling you they're Jewish. And we had, it wasn't that, we had somebody came to our door while our kids were here soliciting money for some worthy cause, but it was on Shabbos. And our son Benjamin answered the door and he said, it's we're Jewish and it's our Sabbath and we don't do any transactions or handle money or do anything. And this guy says, wow, he says, I'm Jewish too. He goes, my mother's Jewish, my grandmother's Jewish. And he said, what's the Sabbath? He didn't even know what it was. So he said, well, it's the day we celebrate that God created the world and et cetera, et cetera. It's a happy day. So his name was Ezra. And so Ben said, oh, you should have a good Shabbos and, good luck with your work and your good causes. So he came out to the patio to tell us. So it was Shabbos afternoon. I said, go find, he said, should I have invited him in? Well, he was busy doing his thing. I said, but go find him and take him some dessert. So we had some, peanut butter, I don't know, like, what are they called? Bars, I don't know, Rice Krispie treats kind of thing that our granddaughter had made. I said, go take him a plate of those. So he ran down to the corner and found him. He said, one of the best things about Shabbos is having special treats. So these are for you to enjoy while you're doing your work. So it's like, people are, Jewish people are out there being motivated to save the world, but they don't know what Shabbos is. It's like, it's so hard. So the Jewish people who, even though we have like this calloused existence and there's like, I don't know what it is, I never heard of it, I don't relate, I can't understand it, all of these things that are getting in our way, all of our obstacles, it's like calluses. We can't feel it. And yet anything we manage to do says our reward will actually be greater. So on one hand, yes, it's easier. I actually had this, when we sent our kids to day school. On one hand, I really wanted them to have a Jewish education that was full and complete, and I'm really glad that we did. On the other hand, I see that my sisters and I, who grew up in a non-Jewish school, came out really strong because we had to identify and defend what we were doing every single day. Not every single, that's like I walked to school uphill both ways. No, it wasn't every single day, but we had an ongoing thing. I remember when in ninth grade, I made the pom-pom girl team. I wouldn't do that now, but I was a pom-pom girl. And then I just informed them that I couldn't perform on Friday nights or on Saturday mornings. I figured they were going to say, oh, then you can't be on the squad. Like, basically you can only perform during the week. I was like, yeah. They're like, they didn't know any other Jews. And so they thought that was reasonable. And they were like, okay. So they had somebody else as like an understudy for me who would perform on Friday nights and on Shabbos day. But that had to be a thing. If you're in a Jewish school, it works differently. You don't have to do that. So different paths are harder, are challenging. And when we have to stand up for something, it's harder. And so our rewards are greater. And the truth is, whether it's somebody's in a day school, a yeshiva, or whatever, we are in a non-Jewish world that is so going farther and farther against Torah values. We have to fight harder and harder to just stay. People think we're extremists. We're just trying to keep the center of the road here. And that's considered to be extreme. And so it says our reward at this time of the Ikvasei de Mashiach, of the footsteps of Mashiach, of this end time, is very, very challenging. We're at the heel. It's like, does the heel have anything even to do with the head? It's like hard to even believe that they're connected at all. And yet we are, because the heel is part of it. And in fact, our entire body, I mean, think about it, your feet, your whole body is dependent on your feet. You stand, you walk, you move around on your feet, and your heel takes the brunt of it, literally. So we are the generation, except this is going back like the past 100 years or so, going from the Holocaust, the Soviet Union, the challenges of Jews today, the state of Israel, the land of Israel. We're taking the brunt of it. We are taking the brunt of it. So our reward for sticking with it until the end says, don't give up. This is a time to develop and to tap into as much emunah, as much trust, knowing, trust, and faith that there is a plan and that there is an end and there is going to be a conclusion to this, that this is the time when we're supposed to think about that even more so. So we have a psalm that says, to speak of God's chesed baboker, in the morning, when things are clear, it's easy to be happy and joyful and all that. Ve'amunatcha, and your emunah, your faith and trust, balelot, at night, when things are dark, when things are being trampled underfoot. It says your heel doesn't get to see the light of day, because there's another thing about your heel. Either it's enclosed in a shoe or it's hitting the pavement. Basically, it's always on the ground. And it says that, like, it doesn't get to see anything, and says that this is the times that we are in, is the time where, like, I don't see it. It does, this is hard to hang on to the faith here. It's hard to hang on to the faith. We are also in, for Parshas Ekev, we are also at the end of the year. So now we are in coming to the end of the month of Av, getting ready to start the month of Elul, which will be to launch the new year at Rosh Hashanah. And it says this is also challenging. It's the time of the Olympics now. It's like people, it's hard to stick with it. And here we are at the end of the year. What happens at the end of the year? It says usually at the end of things, people poop out. The end of the school year, what does in high school, seniors get senioritis. At the end of the week, people are like, thank God it's Friday. Like people are kind of it's very hard to stay with it. And Ekev is about the reminder and the joy and the reward for just sticking with it, just staying in the game, just staying in the game. It says there will be tremendous reward for those who just stick with it. Think how many people we have lost along the way. And so those of us who are sitting here right now, we're the ones who have stuck with it. And it says we need to stick with it. And whether it's in history or whether it's at the end of the year as we get ready for the new year. Specifically, because how we end the year is going to determine how the new year is launched. Sometimes people say, you know what, never mind, I'm just going to wait to start over. I do this with diets, never mind. Okay, I've been eating like, oh my gosh, so much junk food and so many pancake breakfasts and just eating pizza and whatever I wanted. Like, okay, I'll start fresh on Monday. I'll start August 1st. I'll start Rosh Hashanah. Like all these times is like at the end, things get, it's like at the end, it's like one of the things I love to do is to go shopping for new notebooks. I love a new notebook. I love a new calendar. It's all fresh. And it's like, okay, goodbye with the old stuff. I'm done with it. Like, don't be done because you're not done, because we want to bring the year to a very good and strong conclusion. Judaism, Yiddishkeit makes a very big deal about endings. At Shabbos, we have Havdalah. We have a whole service, a whole ceremony around it. When you finish anything, we make a big deal. Like if people are studying, we make a siyum, the siyum hashas. After 7.5 years, the siyums that people are making at the end of each Masechet of Talmud for the Daf Yomi. We were very happy to have a siyum while our kids were here of my husband, my son, and my grandson are all doing Daf Yomi. So we had a siyum for them for just completing a Masechet. It's like anytime we conclude something, we want to make a big deal out of the conclusion. And we do the same thing when we come to the end of a book of Torah. It's called a Shabbat Chazak. Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. The way you end it is going to provide the fuel for how you launch the new one. So instead of like scrapping it, like don't scrap it. It's meant to launch. Same thing in our day. The way we go to sleep is going to impact the way we wake up. So we know we have a Shema that we say literally in our beds. And that Shema and how we go to sleep and what we're thinking about and what we have in mind is going to launch our next day. People always say that, even if it's a work thing, make your list of what you're going to do the next day, get your things out, make sure to clean up. When you wake up to a sink full of dirty dishes is a different day than when you wake up to a clean kitchen. It just is. It's just different. And the way we do this, how we come to this end is going to make a difference. So it says in this last month that we're going to be entering. So now starting with Ekev and concluding the month of Av and moving into the month of Elul. Next week, we will bless the coming of the new month of Elul, is like to really use it and not even wait till Elul, already use Av. Because once Tisha B'Av was over, it was already time to start the process. Those 7 weeks of consolation are 7 weeks of building up, similar to the 7 weeks of counting Sfira from Pesach to Shavuot. We are going from Tisha B'Av to Rosh Hashanah. So as we're doing this, like to really feel the benefit of what we're doing, focusing on and choosing what's a mitzvah that I don't really take so seriously, that I don't think is such anything, or what's a mitzvah that maybe I'd be willing to do, except I always thought I had to understand it first and I had to come to grips with it or something. What can I do that shows that I'm an Ekev kind of a person, that I'm sticking with it to the end, that I am concluding my year. I realize that I am a Jewish person at an important point in history of the entire Jewish people and all of civilization and humanity. I'm an important point in time in the Jewish year as I come to the end of the year. And I'm an important place in my mitzvah doing of looking for what can I do to be an Akev kind of a person that can focus on one of these two kind of mitzvot. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean doing a new mitzvah. It can be paying attention and more carefully thinking about something you're already doing. So one of the things I took on, this had to do with my son's hearing, is I've been saying Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals, for quite a while now. It took me a really long time to integrate that. But I have to say, I would say it pretty quickly and kind of under my breath. But when our son lost his hearing and then he learned that the Birkat Hamazon is meant to be said out loud so that you hear yourself, I'm like, okay. So first of all, it takes longer to say when you say it out loud to hear yourself than rather than if you just kind of like whip it off. So I decided that's what I'm going to do. So nobody else would really notice that there was any difference. I'm just taking a different approach to what I'm already doing and taking that seriously. And it's kind of interesting because it's about tishma'un, about lishmo, it's about hearing, that there's a reward for your hearing it. And that is the point, is that you hear what you are saying. So whether you're saying one line in Hebrew or in English or something, just like, okay, I'm going to do something that I put more thought into what it is that I am already doing. So going back to our Yaakov, his name, when we understand more what Ekev is, reward, the end, going through the process, sticking with it to the end, having the reward for things you don't understand, all of this, dealing with things that are challenging. It's like, is there a better name? Is there a better name for Yaakov than Yaakov? He is the expression of Ekev. And it's interesting that his word is his name is Yaakov, but I don't know if it is, someone can correct me. It is never spelled. It is almost never spelled with the Vav. So Yaakov should be spelled Yud Ayin Kuf Vav Bet for the O. The O sound should be a Vav that makes an O sound, but it's not. It's just, he just carries the little dot. So the word Yaakov, it's Yud. His name is Yud with the word Ekev. Very, very clearly and plainly pronounced. He is that healed person. He is the person who's receiving reward. He's the person who is asked to do things that are crazy. Things happen to him. It's like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? Your brother wants to kill you. Your father-in-law switches wives on you. Your daughter is raped. Your kids, you have to go down to Egypt. Like all these things he could be asking. If he was just an intellectual alone, he'd be like, well, I'm not doing that because that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand that. I'm not doing it. And instead he's Yaakov. He's with it through the duration. It is also a bracha. The Jewish people are eternal. And we are meant, people make all these dire predictions. At the rate things are going, there's not going to be any Jews left, and the Jews aren't going to be this, Jews aren't going to be that. It's like, that is not our concern. We may have to worry about whether we ourselves are going to be part of the group, but we don't need to worry that the Jewish people are disappearing, because the Jewish people are from the beginning through all the way through. We are the ones who go all the way through. This bracha, I think without even knowing it, has been a source of strength for people who have been through tremendous hardships. It's like, if you told you're a Yaakov, you make it all the way to the heel, all the way to the end. It's the don't give up ever name is Yaakov. And the Jewish people don't give up. You hear stories, whatever it is. And any time of history, but most recently, of course, in the Soviet Union or during the Holocaust, of what ordinary people, not like the great spiritual leaders of the community, the ordinary booby, the ordinary person who was just like, the whatever person who was able to maintain their dignity, maintain their sanity, maintain their Yiddishkeit, maintain their anything through such struggles. Where do they get the strength to do that? It's not like they were raised for that. They were not raised for that. It's not like they did Outward Bound or something for endurance. But the name Yaakov means you're going to endure. You're going to endure. And so he's given that name. He's holding on to the heel of Esav. And it's a term of, I guess I always picture it like in a wrestling match. If you get somebody by their heel, you basically control where the rest of their body is. If you get their heel, you twist them down, they're down. So it's like Yaakov in the end is going to prevail. It's going to look like Esav is first and he's coming out good and strong, but in the end, Yaakov has his heel. And Yaakov has his heel means in the end, the Jewish people will prevail. So this becomes a bracha. It becomes a statement of the challenge. It becomes a reminder of what the reward is. It gives us faith through the time of history we're in. It gives us inspiration to deal and respond to the time of the calendar year that we're in. All of that, all of that, all of that. And the underlying message is don't give up. And don't forget the things that seem small to you, insignificant, or beyond you, that they don't make any sense to you, and that there is tremendous akev, there's tremendous reward for those things for listening. This month, the month of Av that we're in, has the zodiac is the Leo the lion, okay? Leo the lion, which is in Hebrew Aryeh. Aryeh is a lion. The word Aryeh for the lion is like, what do we know the lion is being? When we think of the lion, what's the lion to us? It's like king of the jungle. Most people are kind of afraid of a lion, okay? Even when we took our grandchildren to the zoo, we had to keep reassuring them that the lion could not get through the glass. Now, meanwhile, the lion is mostly like lying down and is sleeping in the sun, but we had to reassure the kids that the lion wasn't coming through. We tend to have a sense of awe and trepidation around something that is bigger and stronger than we are. This was kind of the opposite. We were up in the mountains with our older grandsons, and on a hike, and we were down by a river in Winter Park, and they were playing, and one of my grandsons, who's 9, saw it was a little kind, I don't know exactly what it was, like a weasel kind of thing. I don't know what exact, marmot maybe, I don't know what it was, but something in that category. And he's like, Omi, which is what they call, we're Omi and Opa, Omi, there's an animal. And so I said, where is it? He said, over there. So I saw him like, oh. So he says, I think it's a baby bear. I said, I can tell you it's not a baby bear. No, how do you know? I said, I don't know my animals so well, but I know that's not a baby bear. It's going to bite us. It's like, so they were all like freaked out that this baby bear that was a weasel or a marmot was going to do something to them. So I think mostly he's upset that we're in his water and he wants to play is mostly what's happening. So when there is something that strikes us with awe, and that can be something that is fearsome, ferocious, or overwhelming. You know, we were on our trip and in the Grand Canyon. Awesome. Bryce, awesome. The stars in the sky. We were there at Rosh Chodesh, so the sky was so dark and the stars were so incredible. It's like, it's awesome, like one awesome thing after the next. So the word for that is Yira. So the word Aryeh are the same letters as the word Yira. So the month of Av is the month of Yira, the month of awe, where we are like, and we have a sense of, I am smaller than the universe. I'm smaller than God. I'm smaller than the stars. I'm smaller than a lion. I'm smaller even than the baby bear. I'm smaller than all of this, and I have a place. And knowing our place is, on one hand, fills us with yira, with a sense of awe. And on the other hand, it's also inspiring. It makes most people don't come home depressed saying, oh, I'm so depressed. I saw the Grand Canyon, and what's like so depressing is like it's bigger than I am, and I thought I was bigger than anything, but now really actually the Grand Canyon is bigger than I am. Most people are filled with a sense of joy over that fact. It makes them happy to be in awe. We like it. And this is the time to say, I'm happy to be the ekev. I'm happy to be the heel of this whole thing. I'm a very small but significant part of this world. And I'm here to listen to what God wants me to do. And that gives me the ultimate happiness. This week's Parsha is one of only 2 Parshas that starts with the word Vehaya. So if we go back to our Parsha, it says at the very beginning, Vehaya Ekev Tishma'un. This shall be the reward when you hearken to these ordinances. The word v'haya, I don't know why, but for some reason, our sages say that the word v'haya, and it will be, which is actually, so just something that's a little different. It's called the vav hachipuch, which means the vav that turns things around. The word haya means was. V'haya means will be. It changes the tense of whatever it is. So yehi means will be, vayahi means and it was. Okay, so it changes the tense. So it's called a vav hahipuch, one that turns it around. V'haya, one would normally translate it or think it would be and it was, but it is and it will be. And it is always associated with simcha. Things that start with vayehi are things where there's something not so happy going on. When something starts with v'haya, then it is something happy. So it says this parsha starts off with the word v'haya ekev. And this will be your happy, happy, happy day to be ekev, to have this reward for listening to Hashem and to be the person who sticks through it, sticks with it till the end, as distant as you are from the head and the heart and everything else, and you're in the far-flung exile and you think nothing's going to work out. You think your life's not going to work out. You think lots of things aren't going to work out. And this is the reward for sticking with it. And this is what is going to bring you ultimate happiness, to be in this place of yira, the sense of awe for my whole life, the entire context of where I find my life. So this is the Parsha of Ekev. It is always read during the month of Av, and it's always read as we're coming to the end of the year, winding down. And this has been quite a year. I think for everybody, in the past, I think some years, now I can't remember, some years didn't seem to be so event-filled. This year was really, this has been quite a year. Since last Rosh Hashanah, it's been quite a year. So even when our kids came, they were so grateful just to have some TLC and some time down, because we're just thinking about what the year had been just for them. In the yeshiva of Corona, of then having the Meron disaster and losing one of their yeshiva boys, and how devastating and horrible that was. And then when just my own private family, then the panel of stone tile falling on my daughter-in-law's foot and, injuring her. And then the rocket attacks, and then our son's thing with his ear and getting sick. And it was just like, I just need a break. I just need a break. And so when you're coming down, it's like, how are you even still standing? And we say to somebody who has been through a lot, how are you still standing? How are you still standing? So the Jewish people is like, we're considered a little battle weary, worn out, whether it's from the year, from the decade, from whatever. And that can be, again, things that are going on in your personal life, personal challenges, things, whatever is going on. It is really hard to maintain and to stick with it. And this is like the reward for sticking with it. Yes, we start the day with gratitude and end in forgiveness. Then we have a new beginning. Thank you, Beth Ann. That's beautiful. Yes, and I actually meant to mention that before when we were talking about the Shema on our bed, of how we end our day. So thank you very much for bringing me back to that. Is that we ask forgiveness, and we say we forgive other people. We forgive people, not only people who have done something to us in this lifetime, but in previous incarnations. It's like if I'm having a difficulty or an issue with somebody, maybe it's like a recurring thing that came from a previous incarnation of my life. And I want to let go of that. So I'm not carrying it. So the heels carry a heavy load already. We do not want to carry more than we need to. And we want a fresh start, and the fresh start starts at night, not in the morning. So it is only when we can let go. And I can tell you, it helps a lot of sleep issues. A person who can end their day with gratitude and forgiveness for other people goes to sleep with a lot less anxiety, needing a lot less sleep aids to sleep and be truly rested and really start the day. So expressing faith in God, expressing faith in ourselves, being grateful and giving forgiveness to other people, and understandings like, why should I have to forgive someone? Like, How weird is that? You're telling me that an issue I have with somebody could be from a previous incarnation of my life? I mean, like, I don't get that. I don't get that at all. It's like, okay, so you don't get it. That's okay. Let go. Let it go. And then you can have a new beginning. So people talk about it, and we actually wrote about it in our book of Living in the Present Moment, that when people say that someone has baggage, they know they've got a lot of baggage, that what that means really is that they have wisdom that they have not yet unpacked. It's like somebody who's schlepping around the baggage didn't unpack. You notice how, wearing my clothes doesn't require so much energy, but even carrying a bag that had the clothes that I have would take up a lot of energy. But if we can unpack it and put it away where it needs to go, and some of it needs to be donated, some needs to be trashed, and some just needs to be filed. And when we can do that, then we give ourselves energy, and then we can have the refreshment and proceed with only the wisdom that was gained. We say this at the end, when we have a siyum. I feel sometimes like we should have a siyum like after Corona, or a siyum after many challenges that people have been through, is like, can I make a siyum and just take the wisdom and leave like all the pain and aggravation and frustration and everything else that was bothering me? Leave that. Our kids, after we left Cleveland, our kids went on to drive to what's it called, Niagara Falls. So, you can imagine 5 kids in a car on a long ride. I don't need to say any more about how that goes. And they were saying after they got to New York, it was so much fun. And there was this other piece of it. I said, they won't remember that. When they talk about, as they get older and they talk about their trip to New York and to Niagara Falls, they're not going to talk about the squabbling. They're not going to talk about that. They're going to remember just like how much fun they had and what they saw and what they experienced. So, but we have to unpack it. And so when we do that at night, so for sure at the end of every day, as Beth Ann mentioned, and then also we certainly want to do it at the end of the year. To be able to go into the new year's, like, then what do we need to do? Because people say, I need to get ready for Rosh Hashanah. Well, for most people, that means baking challah and honey cake. It's like, what does it mean to prepare for Rosh Hashanah? It means to be able to take the year at the Ekev time and sort through it. Like, what did I learn? What did I gain? What mistakes were made? How do I unpack that and gain the wisdom and be ready to move forward into a new year? So it's just a mega version of what we do every night, God willing, that we do at the end of the year as well. And that's our Ekev opportunity. So just like it feels really good to get a pedicure, at the end of like treating your heels right is to treat the heel of our year, the end of our year well as well. And then we'll be able to enjoy the new year. If we come in unprepared, it's nice to have a new year, but we can't possibly benefit from it in the same way as if we prepare for it and do the work, the pleasurable work, the good work that there is to do during the month of Av, the remainder of the month of Av, the beginning of the month of Elul, and going into Rosh Hashanah. So over the next few weeks during the month of August, we'll be meeting every Thursday, and we'll be talking about the Parsha in conjunction with the preparations for Rosh Hashanah as we all together get ready, hopefully, for the new year of 5782, which God willing will be a wonderful year and bring all of us to a place of true joy. The final piece is that when people have been through challenges, the joy experienced afterwards is heightened. Like if everything is just going merrily along the way and everything is working out great, we're happy, but it's not the same kind of happiness we feel when there have been challenges and then we have something joyful happen. It is a whole other thing that we get to be able to experience. And that's part of the Ekev as well, of what the reward is. It's more than just that there's a reward, it's that there's a heightened sense of pleasure because the pain was overcome. And when something is restored, it's just like when you find something that you've lost. I lose a pen that's like one of my favorite pens. When I find it in the bottom of my purse, I'm so happy. It's like, how happy was I about the pen when I bought it? I was medium happy, but when I find it after I thought I lost it, then I'm really happy. So health restored, relationships restored, life restored, whatever it might be that is restored is a special extra kind of joy and a special extra kind of reward and pleasure that we feel. So God willing, we will all be privileged to do that and have the joy of the Ekev, of the heel, and be, as the Jewish women are called, Beit Yaakov, the house of Jacob, the house of the heel, the house of the heel. And that's our goal, is to see both the challenge in it that's there, as well as recognizing the blessing that is awaiting each and every one of us. So I want to wish you a good Shabbos. It's great to be back with you. And anybody who wants to stay on to ask any questions or to say anything, please feel free to do so.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I have a question.
Hi, Riva.
Hi. I was started out on my phone in my car.
Riva, I can kind of hear you, but not totally.
Let me, hold on, maybe I'll move it closer. Okay, better now?
A little bit better.
Okay, so my question was, you said this was your favorite Parsha. Did you say
I'm
that?
sorry, I can't. Do you want to put it in the chat and then I can answer it? Do you know?
Ellyn, while she's doing that,
Yes.
I'm here with Kathy Scott.
Hi, Kathy. I thought I saw you there.
And I just wanted to tell you this. As you were talking, I felt filled up, just having you back. And after missing you for 3 weeks and whatever.
Oh, thank you.
This particular talk was everything I've never heard before.
Thank you. I thank you very much. It's nice to be back. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. It fills me too. It also fills me. Thank you. It's good to see you guys together.
It's nice.
And Riva, in answer to your question of why it's my favorite, so a couple reasons. This was actually one of the Jennifer Schwartz's Shabbos Kala in Denver. This was her Shabbos, and I gave I usually don't remember, but I remember this a Devar Torah about. I gave it really about the heel being the part of the foot, like where your leg and your foot are kind of come together at the heel, and that represented marriage, of having like the horizontal and the vertical. You have two people, the legs this way and the foot's this way, and the heel kind of has to mediate the two things. And that has to do about the compromises in marriage and what that compromise means. And that compromise doesn't mean, and I gave as the example, he wants to go to New York and she wants to go to California, and so you settle on Kansas. That's not called a compromise. That the compromise is, what is it about New York? What is it about California? And then it could be Chicago. I mean, or it could be Houston. I mean, whatever it is that is the thing of figuring it out, but how challenging that really is. Because if if somebody has heel pain, they can't walk. It's like that connection just doesn't work. But that's what we talked about for marriage, for the Parshas Ekev. Also, it has in it the mitzvah, v'achalta v'savata u'berachta, you shall eat and be satisfied and bless God. And this is the only Torah commanded blessing that we have, is this one. So I like that. And it's also the second paragraph of the Shema. So between all of those things, it's just so action-packed. So I gave my class on Tuesday about the v'achalta v'savata u'berachta and why God makes such a big deal about food. So actually, that just reminds me, I need to do a Devar Torah video for the Jewish Experience, which I think I'll do about the food part. So I'm going to do that. So thank you for reminding me all about that. So my head's still not totally on after traveling. I was immersed in my family. I did not do anything else except my grandson was teasing me because he said all I did was wash and check lettuce for salads. So he would say, Omi, it's midnight. Are you going to sleep or are you washing and checking lettuce? I'm like, I'll be washing and checking lettuce. So that was my job. So it's a beautiful Parsha, and it's just, every year we hope Mashiach is coming, and we know it's coming closer. The one thing we know for sure is that we're getting closer. So, when we were on the trip with our kids, we did a lot of driving because we drove in a very short time, in 4 days. We did all that driving to Moab and Arches and Bryce and the Grand Canyon down to Lake Powell and then to Phoenix. And so there was a lot of, are we there yet? Questions in the car. So one thing we could say, no matter what, is we're definitely getting closer. So we don't know when exactly or how, but we know we're getting closer. So God willing, this year is the one that brings us closer, and it could happen before. We could get there. We could get there tomorrow. We could get there tomorrow. Amen. I hope it's so. All right, thank you so much, everybody. I look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, bye-bye.
Good job.
Thanks, Ellen. It's great.
Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Yes.
Hi, Tova.
Ellen?
Yes. Hi,
Hi,
Andy.
Andy. Hi. I have a question. The beautiful, welcome home first.
Thank you.
So glad you're here.
Thank
And
you.
I wanted, there's two things. When you're talking about forgiveness,
Yes.
I had a little accident on Tuesday.
Oh,
So the long and the short is my dog and I got mauled on Tuesday. And
so sorry.
it was by the same dogs that got us, I don't know if you remember, maybe about 4 years ago. And it's the same family, obviously. So we were just out for a walk. But my question to you is, how do I forgive them? I mean, today I'm feeling actually angry.
You should be angry.
Yeah, I am. And I broke my toe and it
Andy, I'm
into
so
my-
sorry.
bit me up on my upper arm and I had to go to the hospital. So I'm thinking, the lady from animal control called and she goes, well, that dog is in having chemotherapy. It has cancer. So I thought, well, if it was a child, that child would be dead. I mean, they're bull mastiffs. They're like tanks. So I'm thinking as you're talking, how can I forgive them when today is the first day I've been really angry.
No,
And-
you don't forgive them. No, forgiveness is about, it's if somebody is alive,
Mm-hmm.
we have a whole legal system, a Jewish legal system. If somebody causes harm to another person, or
Yeah.
their animal causes harm to them, they are financially and legally responsible. They are responsible for paying for your medical care. They're responsible for apologizing, and they're responsible for if this dog has done it before. That animal is in a special category halachically. Now, I know these people are not following Jewish law, but an animal that it's based on an ox that has gored before is in a different category of responsibility to the owner. If an ox is never gored and it just kind of randomly does it, so there's one level of responsibility. But if they've done something before, there is a heightened responsibility. So your obligation is not to forgive them. Your obligation is to seek remedy, is to take legal action against them.
Okay. Well, Yasher Koach on your Parsha.
Thank you, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was, and it's the same dogs. There are two of them.
What was their response to you?
Well, it was just Shoshi and I walking. I wanted to get my steps in. And it was early morning because it's been so hot. So I wanted to go. And I saw the dog coming they had workmen there. And I knew what was going to happen because it did it years ago, that it may have been that one or the other one. I don't know which one, but its intention is to kill. And is
what did the owner
kept
say?
Screaming, help, help, somebody help me, because it was going on for such a long time. And nobody came, and then a workman came out and I said, please help me, help me. And he could see the dog is on me, eating me and tearing my dog up. So anyway, the bottom line is it seemed to take a really long time. And then this guy came and I thought it was a workman, but it was the owner. So he knows that this happened to me before and my dog. So it was very weird, Ellen, because he didn't come to me. First, he went and he said, you guys have to keep the gates closed, you know, the fence and whatever. And I thought, I'm sprawled out on his driveway. This is, I'm crying, where's my dog? Where's my dog? Where's my dog? And I knew something had happened to my leg because I twisted it real good. But that wasn't even it. I just couldn't believe that he wasn't going, what can I do? Or can I help you? Or whatever. He was just like, he
Did you call the
eventually
police?
brought a chair. What?
Did you call the police?
I said, this time I'm calling the police.
Yes.
And I said, and then the police came and the paramedic came and the fire, whatever. And they said, you have to go to the hospital because you need stitches, whatever. But he was like, when my Lindsay came, he was sitting on his steps. I'm down on the driveway, sprawled out. I finally just laid back because or maybe I was sitting up, I can't remember. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And he's behind me, you know, just sitting there. And finally I see a man walking 2 dogs. And I said, by any chance, did you see a little dog? Because I look at, I'm still holding on to the leash and there's no dog at the end because the dog took her off, you know, to do the flailing of her back and forth in its mouth. And he said, yeah, I saw one go down like the other street. So he's sitting there, he can hear it. And finally, the guy leaves and he says to me after about 5 minutes, well, do you want me to go look for your dog? And I said, yes, please, I really do. And he said, well, do you think she'll come to me? And I said, well, I don't know, but it's like I was so hysterical. I thought, yeah, you please, because I knew she'd get run over. And so then he left and then eventually came back and he had Shoshi, which I was so thankful, but it was just bizarre.
That is bizarre.
It's so
What did the
weird.
police
And
say?
the mom, his wife, wasn't there, but she's a Jewish girl. She made sure to let me know. I'd never had met them until the dogs, it was right after my big back surgery, and the dog pushed me back. And they had a dog walker at that time who I still see, and it's whatever. So I just thought, wait. So Lindsay says to me that night, we can't come with David or Ellie. We can't walk around there. We can't go to the park or the pool. And I said, we'll go the other direction, Linz. And she said, no, those dogs, and animal control said, no, we can't do anything because it has to go to judge has to decide. And, the dog has cancer and it's going through chemotherapy. And I thought,
Too bad.
well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I think it's just starting to sink into me that these are a menace, and I
They're
know
a menace to society. They are a menace, and you should take whatever legal action you can take. You should take.
But then I thought, why do I have to go through all this? Why can't they just, if the dog is sick, both of those dogs are evidently bull mastiffs. My girlfriend told me years ago, they're bred to kill. That was their purpose years ago. And these dogs intend to, it was just, I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And there was nobody around and nobody came when I screamed and screamed. And I just thought, well, maybe they have who knew? I didn't know who was around.
The owners are responsible. And I can tell you in Jewish law, you're not allowed to own an animal that is that kind of an animal. You cannot have an animal that hurts people,
Well,
And
I thought that's
whether
what
they
I
have
thought.
cancer or whatever. You
Yeah.
can't do that, especially
And
one
I
who
just
has
thought,
caused harm like
yeah.
that. You can't do it.
But when you were talking about forgiving,
That's a different category.
Okay.
So that's a different category. Yeah, no. You can forgive the person for whatever, but that doesn't mean you don't take action against them.
okay,
You can say they were having a bad day, they were whatever, but you still hold them responsible and liable. We're not a turn the other cheek people. Like
okay,
there is a legal system and you take as much recourse as you can because they're harmed you and they'll harm anybody else. And if the owners are responsible even for the negligence of workers they have at their house, if they say, well, we put them behind the gate, but they, the workers let them out, like that's their the owner's responsibility. If you're
okay,
gonna have an animal like that, then you are the one who bears ultimate responsibility.
okay.
Refuah shlema.
Thank you, thank you. Ellen, easy resting
Thank
for
you.
you. I'm so happy you're home, but I'm happier that you got to be with your family. That's the ultimate greatest.
It was really great. It was really fun.
And you're so right. Those kids won't remember anything but the great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The rest of the stuff they'll even just joke about. It won't.
Yeah. Okay, sweetie.
All
Give
right.
Steve our
Take
love.
care. I will. To Ron, give Ron my best and really
I will.
refuah shlema. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye,
Andy,
babe.
I don't know you, but feel better.
Thank you.
Hi,
Take care of
Tova.
yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know
I want
somebody
to
else.
say hi to you
Thank
and
you.
to say that we missed you, as you know.
Thank you. I missed you. It was a wonderful month. And
I
it's,
bet. I bet. And I'm sorry I'm not turning my picture on, but I woke up queasy this morning.
oh, I'm
I
sorry.
was doing all this emotional eating. I ate an entire
Oh,
Let me tell you what I did last night. This is a confession, even though you're not a priest.
I'm not a priest. That's true.
An entire carton of pistachio gelato, which, by the
Sounds
way,
delicious.
is the most delicious thing ever. I think I got it at Target. It doesn't have a lot of sugar, but I ate the whole carton, and I think I don't know what got to me, but I'm queasy today. But I wanted to ask you, first of all, about Benjamin.
Thank you. His hearing has not returned, but he is feeling much better.
Okay. I'm praying.
Thank you.
And I also put his name in for the what was it that just on Tubob? On Tubob, they
Oh.
have a whole thing. So
Thank you.
I put that in there, and I just hope I hope it gets better.
Thank you. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
And then the other one is our meeting on the 8th.
Yeah.
Happening.
So excited.
Okay, good. I have it on my calendar, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
And I'm praying for that too. I need to start praying for that. I haven't been, but I'm going to start including it.
Praying for, we have so much to pray for.
We have so much to pray for. We have to just pick the stuff that's the most important. and do
Actually, you
it.
can pick it all. You don't even have to
How do you pick it all? You just
You
say
can
everything. Please
just
Hashem,
say
everything.
everything. Everything. That's right.
I always pray for peace at the end. I always
Yeah.
pray for sanity and for peace and for, sanity is
Mashiach.
really what we need more than anything right now.
Well, if Mashiach would come, then we would have all of it. So we pray for Mashiach.
And I do pray for Mashiach.
Yes, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, we are getting closer, but I would like it to be right this moment.
So the song that's in my head is the one, I think it's from, I don't know if it's from Chabad or if it's from the, what's that church, the Christian church where they did the dancing? Did you ever go there?
Oh, I know you're talking about Faith Bible Church.
Faith Bible Church. I think in one of their performances, they did this thing where they put their arms up in the air and they were going, Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach.
Ay, 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 ay,
Yeah.
ay. Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach. Yeah, it's funny. I have to say,
Stuck with me.
when they do that, it makes me a little nervous because they're thinking one thing and I'm thinking another.
They're thinking a different Mashiach, but it's a good
They
song.
are. It's a great song. Yeah, we did that at the wedding I was at.
It's a
so.
good song. It's catchy.
It is very catchy and very much what we need.
Yes, and thank you. So I know, it's definitely challenging times, and I don't know. I think we're all doing the best we can, and
We're doing the
and
best.
we know that we're going to get through it. That's the main point. We know.
That's right. We're the
that we're getting
Ekev.
through
We're the
this.
heels. We're getting through it all the way to the end.
And
Don't give up.
one thing we cannot complain about is being bored.
That's right.
There's always
definitely do.
something. Yeah,
There's
there's
always
always
something.
something to think about and not being bored. And it is quite interesting, I have to say.
It is true.
What
Always
we're
has to be.
seeing is unbelievable. But anyway, onward and upward, and I'm so looking forward to being in Israel together and seeing you in person.
Amen.
When are we going to see each other in person?
Well, we'll talk about that and see. It's a a little challenging because with the Delta variant and they're starting to want masks on the inside again. So we'll see what we're going to be doing.
Oh, so we're not going to have the meeting in
Oh, no, we will. No, we will have the meeting. I will. Yes, because that's going to be a small group. So
Okay, good.
yes,
Okay.
we're going to have the meeting.
All right, my dear.
All right. Take care. I hope you feel better.
Love you. Yes, I
Love
think today
you.
is just a day that it's a mental health day. Speaking of which, I have amazing news.
What?
No longer taking antidepressants and mood
Good for
stabilizers.
you.
Can you stand that?
Wow, that's
I just didn't,
amazing.
you know what? And I have Medicare to thank because Medicare, my membership lapsed because Medicare and my bookkeeper. The bookkeeper didn't work out and she was paying the Medicare bills and I kind of forgot to keep paying them. So my membership lapsed to Medicare. They stopped paying. And I thought, maybe I'm going to try cutting back even more because I've already been cutting back. And maybe I'll try cutting back even more. I cut back even more. I'm taking 0 already for probably almost a month. Maybe more than a
Amazing.
month. And I'm fine.
Yay.
Yay.
I'm so glad to hear that. You
Can
should
you
just
believe it?
continue to
I've been
feel good,
praying.
mind, body, and
you.
soul.
Thank you. I've been praying for that one for a long time.
Good for
To
you.
get off of it. To me, that's like a sign of Mashiach, right?
Absolutely.
It's a step in that direction. We're not
Step
going
in
to
that direction.
We're not going to need it. We're not going to need doctors. We're not going to need medicine. We're not going to need. It's happening in my neck of the woods for some reason. It seems to be happening a little bit.
I'm so glad for you. Good. You should just continue to feel good in every way, shape, and form.
Thank you.
That's great.
And you go rest.
Yes, I actually have a doctor's appointment. So I'm going to go have lunch and then go do that. And then I have a meeting. So I'm going to.
I know it's hard after being away. You need rest.
I do need
So get some
rest.
good rest. We need
Okay.
you. We need you in
Thank
perfect
you.
health always.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Take good care,
Shabbat
Tova.
shalom.
Have a good Shabbos.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.